560 mobile app and your Alexa-powered smart speaker on TuneIn, iHeart, and radio.com. If you're looking for the latest news, insight into what it means, and the sharpest opinion, there's only one station in Chicago where you can turn, and it's this one. We're AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy, and Bolshevik Bernie was on with Clinton Foundation donor Zero this weekend to talk about party unity, or the lack thereof, should he be the nominee, with so many people expressing concerns, establishment types, those who have television platforms or are access to op-ed pages. So many people concerned, about the prospect of a Bernie nomination. And here's what he had to say to those concerns.
Trump is such a threat to our Constitution, to our way of life, that while Democrats may have differences of opinion, yeah, I have differences with Joe Biden, no great secret. Joe voted for the war in Iraq. Joe voted for a bad bankruptcy bill. Joe voted for bad trade agreements. But at the end of the day, I have known Joe Biden for a very long time. He's a decent guy. I have no doubt that if I win, Joe will be there. If Joe ends up winning, I will be there. We are going to come together, and President Obama, in my view, he has said this, will play a leading role in helping whoever the Democratic nominee is.
Of course they will, because they're all starting from the same premise, which is cultural Marxism and command control economics. There's just a little bit of a difference of opinion on pace. That's all. I want to also just remark upon and point to a piece from a couple of months ago. We talk about Ortega's Nicaragua and Castro's Cuba and the Soviets when we talk about Bernie. Let's remember there are many other examples, too, including a real-time one in Venezuela. But a very good piece from the Federalist, just as I said a couple of months ago, about the fall of Romanian communism. The exception to the peaceful collapse of communism in Eastern Europe was Romania. Remember Ceausescu? 30 years ago in December, citizens of Romania were being killed by the hundreds as they took to the streets to demand liberty from their brutal communist regime. And this individual, the author of the piece, Jamie Metzger, went to Romania 5 years after that occurred and Ceausescu was deposed, and he goes through what he learned from his visit to Romania about Marxism, and regardless of whatever form it takes, Lenin or Trotsky, you're all on a path to the same destination. And so maybe if we can't get people's mind around the cultural implications, we can help get their mind around the economic implications of what Bernie Sanders has proposed. Just taking exactly what he has proposed at face value, only taking the assumptions that he has made and applying a little bit of economic modeling to predict what the results would be. To help us do that, we're pleased to be joined by Casey Mulligan, who's professor of economics at the University of Chicago and co-author of Chicago Price Theory. Casey, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Good morning.
Morning. So I read your piece at your blog, caseymulligan.blogspot.com. But before we get into details of some of the signature pieces of revolution that Sanders has proposed, give us sort of the top line of take the GND and Medicare for all and other proposals together, and what does it give you?
You know, if you looked at it in terms of national income or GDP, those would fall about 24% if they did a good job at implementing it. Wages, after taxes, wages would go down before taxes, and also there would be a lot more taxes. So I found something like 51% drop in wages after taxes, about 16% less people would be working, or they'd be working less hours, or some combination of those.
Just to start with the wages before taxes. Well, Bernie Sanders is guaranteeing a $15 minimum wage. He's guaranteeing government employment. He's guaranteeing starting teachers making 50% more than the average starting teacher salary right now, from $40,000 to $60,000. So he's guaranteeing higher wages across the board. So how could wages fall?
Well, they wouldn't be across the board. Way more than 90% of the workforce is not working at minimum wage or working as a teacher. So maybe specific occupations would get a raise from him, but the vast, vast majority of people would have lower wages because they'd be less productive. You know, when you have to jump through a bunch of hoops of government, and you have taxes discouraging people in the businesses from providing the most value to their market, they're going to be unproductive. And we've seen that time and time again in history. I guess you've mentioned them on your show. When the government takes over an industry, it becomes quite unproductive. And if there's less being produced, there's less that can be paid to workers.
And what about the economic impact of erasing all student loan debt and free college for everyone?
I didn't look at the debt part. There's a charitable view that you can get away with debt repudiation does once. Now the college is an ongoing thing, so I looked at that. Mm-hmm. And that would add to the cost of all of his other programs. It's not huge by itself. That's kind of one of his tricks, if you will say, or one of the seductive parts of it. Different pieces of his program aren't that big, but when you put them together, you get to or beyond the limits of the amount of tax revenue that a government can possibly get. And when you're at those sort of limits where the government is taxing to its very maximum, you're putting the maximum slowdown on the economy.
Well, right, and then you get into just the business of rationing, and I'm not just talking about health care.
Yeah, but anything that you're going to make to be free, there's going to have to be what prices do by having things not be free. Individuals have to make a decision: do I want to take that home or not? And they look at the price to do that. When there's no price there, and then they're just like, yeah, I'll take it home. I'll waste it. Doesn't matter. And so you have to come in with some other mechanism to decide who's going to get how much and when and where, and that's rationing.
On his really the signature piece that he has argued for some time and has been the source of back and forth during the debate, Medicare for All, you conclude the payroll tax rates would have to increase 14 percentage points, translating to an increase of an average of $18,000 per household per year. And Bernie Sanders has at least been honest about increasing taxes all the way down to household incomes of $29,000 to pay for Medicare for All. But of course, he says that you're going to make it up. The increase in your taxes will be more than made up for by not having co-pays and not having premiums. And so that's his argument against any proposed out-of-pocket expenses through taxation.
I'm glad you brought that up, Dan. That is the one most important place where he doesn't do economics, and his economic advisors don't do economics. So what he's talking about is right now a lot of us have insurance from our job, health insurance, and there's a line in our paycheck where they take out the money for that. And Sanders, not doing any economics, Sanders will say, you know, what's the big deal if we're going to get rid of that line in your paycheck? Your employer won't take out money for health insurance, and the government instead will take out money. So we're just relabeling the line on your paycheck, and that's just totally wrong. The difference in the current system, the money coming out of my paycheck is for me and my family, and Sanders' plan, the money coming out of your paycheck will be for all the other people in the country. And so you have a situation where you're going from a situation where you're dealing with paying for things with your own money versus paying for things with other people's money. And, of course, you run out of other people's money a lot quicker than you run out of your own because the other people don't have the incentive to provide those things when they don't have any skin in the game. And that's the big difference. And you can another way to see it is just to say, you know, what about his argument for health care is any different for anything else? Food, housing, entertainment. I mean, all these things have profits in them, which he says is a waste, and all these things involve advertising, which he says is a waste. If we just had the government do it, then all these things would be cheaper. Then we had to have the government doing everything, and that's socialism. Those are the folks you've been talking about on your show, the Russias and the Chinas and the Romanias, the Venezuelas. it just doesn't work. Even if we don't understand why it doesn't work, we've seen that it doesn't work.
You also make the point in your piece that, you don't put it in these words, these are my words. If you thought last week was a bad week for the market, get ready for Bernie World and the impact of his economic policies on your 401k, on capital formation and business creation.
Yeah, I estimated, this is a tougher thing to estimate, but I estimate the stock market would fall more than 50%. And the basis for that is I look back to when's the last time then the economy fell, like I said, 24%, or after-tax wages fell more than 50%. I have to go back almost 100 years. And that was a time when the stock market cut in half and stayed low for many years. And again, this is all predicated on the assumption that things kind of implemented wisely. In the Great Depression, they eventually realized some of the mistakes they were making and started to fix them. Would Bernie Sanders recognize his mistakes, or would he double down on them? And then it could get a lot uglier.
Right.
If 50% drop wasn't ugly enough.
And that's where you get into having to remind people, would he double down on them? This is somebody who is he's honest about it, but he's a socialist ideologue. So it's not just about philosophies. It's also about what's somebody's disposition to be a pragmatic problem solver or to be an ideologue in spite of evidence or performance. And Bernie Sanders clearly is the latter.
That's the way he's been talking for his whole career. It's consistent, at least.
He is Casey Mulligan, professor of economics at the University of Chicago, co-author of Chicago Price Theory, and I tweeted out his piece from his blog sussing out the expense and impact of Bernie's proposals. It's worth checking out and maybe sharing within your social circles to put some numbers to what Bernie's bloviating about on the debate stages. Casey, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Have a good day.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
You're listening to Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
The Lou Dobbs Financial Report is brought to you by Signature Bank, helping local businesses succeed. Visit signaturebank.bank for your commercial banking needs.
I'm Keith Peters in for Lou Dobbs. Wall Street hoping for a better week. U.S. House passes a ban on flavored e-cigarettes, and fear of viruses causing a run on face masks. Those stories next.
In a recent survey, investors shared what they felt were the greatest threats to their retirement. It's no surprise the most common threats include stock market volatility, economic uncertainty, conflict in the Middle East, the 2020 presidential impeachment, and election. Unfortunately, there are many threats beyond your control that can affect your retirement savings. At Goldco, a leader in precious metals, the team believes one way to protect your investment portfolio is with physical gold and silver. Goldco has helped thousands of investors safeguard their retirement, especially in times of uncertainty. In fact, if you call 855-971-2006, Goldco will send you a free 1-ounce silver American Eagle coin. And all you have to do is pay for shipping and handling. No obligation. 100% free. Call 855-971-2006 to get your free silver American Eagle coin. That's 855-971-2006.
As the new trading week gets underway, most investors are hoping there's no repeat of big drops in the stock markets as the coronavirus continues to cause the shutdown of factories